Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen wants me to give my new house tour because she has kids. After that, am I the jerk for not letting my roommate's new girlfriend in my home? And after that, entitled dad leaves me with his kids on a plane. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen steps on a scorpion. Yowza, you're getting mean, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen wants me to give her my new house because she has kids. So me and my boyfriend recently bought a house together. We're both 25 and we were able to buy a house relatively early since houses aren't too expensive where I am. We also live with our 6-month-old Bernedoodle puppy and our 5-year-old bulldog who we rescued. We don't plan on having kids, so the primary reason for buying a house was to have room for ourselves and our dogs. I should note that my parents are supportive of my decision. My sister, who's 26, is not child-free, however. She currently has a 1-year-old daughter and recently found out that she's pregnant again. Last week, she called me to ask if she could live in our house. She offered to pay £1,200 per month in rent so that we could rent out a nice place of our own. I asked why she wanted to do this, and she explained that she wants room for her kids. Our house has 4 bedrooms, which is quite large for a house in the UK. I explained to her that as much as I would like to be able to help her, me and my boyfriend worked hard to buy a house, so we didn't want to leave and go back to renting. She immediately got really upset with me. She said that I'm selfish for buying a house when I don't want kids, when there are so many families, such as hers, who could use my house. She also critiqued me for buying a Bernedoodle puppy. Side note, we would have rescued if we could. However, none of the rescues in our area had a Bernedoodle, so we made sure to buy from a reputable breeder. After I told her that she wouldn't be getting to live in my house, she told me that me and my husband will never have a family regardless of how many mutts we fill it with. I haven't spoken to her since. Today, my father called me. I told him about how ridiculous my sister was being. However, he sided with her, although not nearly as crazily. He said that I should think about it, since I'd be doing my sister a favor. Am I the jerk for not doing this for my sister? Am I the jerk for not letting my roommate's new girlfriend in my home? I, 23 male, live with my roommate, 21 male, and we get along great, hardly ever an argument. About a year ago, I broke up with my ex, 20 female, because I had finally caught her cheating on me. We had a year-long relationship full of emotional and mental games from her. It took a lot of courage to finally accept she isn't the one and to break off all communication. I really loved her, but I have finally let her go and moved on. My roommate was a huge help in supporting me to get over her. About a month ago, it came to my attention that my roommate was texting my ex as friends. This didn't bother me because it really doesn't have anything to do with me. Had I not seen the texts, I never would have known. Within the last week or so, it has come to my attention that they are looking for a relationship together. This in itself doesn't bother me, as they are both adults and I have no place in this decision. The part that bothers me is the fact that she would be coming to our house regularly to hang out with him and spend the night. My roommate knows I spent a year being mentally taken advantage of and cheated on, and another 6 months to finally get over it and become mentally healthy again. I was depressed for so long thinking about her. Still, I decided to see how things would go. She came by the other day, and it was as awkward and hostile as I could expect. She was asking demeaning questions and saying rude comments like, "I see your room is still a mess," and "It's really taking you this long to find a new girlfriend? When are you going to get over me?" And "I'm sure your roommate will be much better." Of course, these are things I can ignore. However, I don't think I should have to put up with that. I could barely handle the hour she was here, let alone the foreseeable future. My roommate never spoke up against her, despite her rude comments. He knows what she did to me and what she's doing now, but for the lack of better term, he's whipped in my opinion. I had a talk with him yesterday and told him he can either move out and have a relationship with my ex, or he can stay here and promise to never bring her into the house. I told him that since I am the sole homeowner, he needs to respect my rules, and while I hate to limit his stay here, I do not trust her in my home, and I won't put up with her mind games. He told me it's just because I'm jealous, and now there's a rift that I can't say we have ever had before. I made it clear he's more than allowed to have a relationship with her, she is simply not allowed in my home. Am I the jerk Update. Talked to my roommate when he got off, this time with level heads. I brought up all the great points you guys made as far as why I feel the way I do. He apologized for the gaslighting and understands why I don't want her in the house, despite his defense of her after she left. He asked if we could compromise and allow her only in his room and not common areas. I told him absolutely not, as this is unenforceable. I was willing to allow her over before she made it clear she's only here to raise heck, but now it's clear I cannot allow her here. I also told him it's likely she's just using him, as many of you brought up. At first, he said he feels like I'm controlling him, but I again made it clear he's more than welcome to see her at any time, just not in my home. I told him I absolutely will not kick him out at this point, but if he brings her over without my permission, I will have no choice. I chose not to pursue action to kick him out because I don't feel making him homeless is warranted at this point. My ex lives in a college dorm and he's a cook at Sonic. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing he doesn't have a place to sleep at night, especially with winter coming, regardless of his actions against me. General consensus was that he would come back with his tail between his legs should he decide to stay with her, and there's no reason in my book to add insult to injury, especially when, up to this point, he has been a wonderful friend for years now. In addition, it's possible he's already been manipulated to act the way he did. It took me a year to break free of that, so I don't expect him to be impervious either, regardless of him witnessing me go through that. After a bit more back and forth, he agreed on his own terms that he will not be seeing her anymore, which took me by surprise, but I'm both relieved and proud of him. I'll be keeping an eye on things in the near future, but reminding him of the treatment I endured, and he would likely have to endure, seems to have paid off. I'll update if anything happens, but I have good faith that things actually have ended in the best way possible. Thank you for all of your support. Entitled Dad leaves me with his kids on a plane. So this happened last weekend. I was flying out of JFK Airport in New York, aka one of the worst airports in the US, trying to not get sick. When I was in the TSA line, I was surrounded by two families, a mom and her son behind me, and two parents with two boys in front of me. The mom in front of me was tired, like she was sitting on a big carry-on bag while her husband wheeled her about tired. Dad was so focused on mom not falling off the suitcase that the boys were just darting about and trying to play with the boy behind me as well. It's 6:30 a.m. I'm on 2 hours of sleep, so the world is just too much for me. But I also worked at a special needs preschool for 2 years prior to becoming a therapist, so I know how to wrangle kids on minimal sleep. I go into crowd control mode, asking the boys about their interests and reminding them we have to be quiet to talk about them. I find out the brothers are Eric, 9, and Daniel, 6, and they're really excited about going on a plane. The boys start having a quiet conversation about Minecraft. The mom behind me thanks me, and we actually have a nice chat about me previously working in the special needs school and how fun it was. An hour and a half later, I'm boarding my plane and I see the tired mom like 5 rows back from where I was seated. She's at a window seat and she's already passed out. I sit, and about 5 minutes later, I see the dad and 2 boys coming on the plane. The first kid, Daniel, sits down next to me, and Dad pauses for a moment, just staring at me. After a minute, I'm just like, "Is something wrong?" I kid you not, this man proceeds to take the boarding pass out of his second son's hand, swap it with his, and tell his son to sit in the aisle seat. He then bolts to the row his wife is in. Once the disbelief wears off, the boys start asking me questions about the plane and snacks and the TV mounted in front of them. I'm so exhausted I don't even fight it. I show the older one how to turn on the TV screen on the seat in front of him and tell them, "Miss Mindful is really sleepy, like your mom, so I'm going to take a nap." Both of them tell me to have a nice nap and I pass out. I wake up 2 hours later to my tray down with a mini water bottle and a bag of cookies on it. Apparently, my new friends thought I would want a snack when I woke up. Great kids. 30 minutes before we land, there's commotion behind us and what sounds like running. All of a sudden, formerly asleep mom is very much awake and looking over both kids to make sure they are all right. Both of them mention how they have been watching Moana, so they're perfectly fine. Mom then shoots her husband the neutral face of displeasure. When we get off the plane, Mom follows me to the bathroom to apologize. Apparently, she took some medication to help ease her anxiety with flying, but it just knocked her. Can't be anxious if you're unconscious, I suppose. Her husband was supposed to sit with the younger boy while the older one sat with her. She freaked out when she woke up and saw her husband, and in her drowsy state, she thought her husband forgot the kids back at JFK, hence the panic. Apparently, her husband thought it was a good idea to leave them with me because he heard me talking about working at a school and figured they would be fine with me. She apologized, and when we got out of the bathroom, she made her husband apologize for leaving her kids with a stranger. The whole walk to the pickup area, she was reminding her kids about stranger danger and how they need to be careful in big places like this. Daniel gave me a paper heart he folded out of a New York City brochure, so I have a new best friend now. Karen calls me a useless idiot after she gave me the wrong address. As a food delivery driver, we are paid only from the time we accept a pickup up to the time we deliver to the given address. Anything beyond that will either be at our own personal expense or we have to call it in for pay adjustment. We are also not paid when waiting for the order to be complete. So if an order takes some 30 minutes after you arrive, you don't get any pickup requests, and we can lose a lot of potential income because of it. The story. This just happened last night. I got a message to pick up Karen's pizza at the pizza place. This was at night. I got there, waited for another 5 minutes for the pizza to cook, then boxed, and I'm on my merry way. As I was checking out the delivery location, I noticed that it's a place that I have always noticed on my way that seems to be a fancy apartment complex. Never delivered in that place yet. Off I drove and parked at the apartment. When I read again the address and the instructions, there was no apartment number. Problem number 1. So I thought that maybe she would be waiting for me at the lobby or that she works at the front desk. When I got there, I saw 3 elderly ladies and thought one of them is Karen, but that's not the case. They were sweet ladies who tried to be helpful and also seemed to be interested to know the fellow residents, as none of them had ever heard of anyone named Karen residing there. I called Karen, and this is the conversation from memory. Pardon me, there was a point where I have no idea how it escalated from 0 to 100. Me. I marked my status as arrived to let customers know. Hi Karen, I'm here at the lobby of the address you gave me, and you forgot to give me the unit number of your address. Karen, confused. Huh? What do you mean? I live at a house, not a building. Me. You gave this address to me, and I'm here. Karen, raising her voice this time. That is my mother's address. Why did you deliver it there? Me. This is the address that is written here in the order. Karen, still in a raised voice. That is wrong. You should deliver it to the right address. Me. I do not know where that is, and I'm not allowed to deliver to a new address. Actually, if it's nearby, we can choose to do it. Otherwise, we can consider it failed to deliver, and we get the pizza and/or full pay for the delivery and tips. But her pizza is probably close to $10 US, and I only get some $7 US pay for this. Karen. What do you want me to do? Me. I will have to call it in with support and let them decide. At this point, I'm already hesitant to continue this and just accept any loss. Karen. You are useless, idiot. Hangs up. I was on speaker when I made that call, and the 3 ladies were shocked by what they heard. They just told me to keep the pizza and forget about it. They also commented on how she raised her voice and also the useless and idiot comment. I just told them that I will just call support and take it from there, then bid the lovely ladies goodnight and left. As I got into the car, I called support and told them about it. Support puts me on hold and talked to Karen. Support. So, I talked to Karen and she gave her correct address. Me. Check GPS, how far it is from the current location. That's another 5.5 miles, and I already have a next pickup. Support. Yes, and we will be adjusting your pay for this. This is the reason for these calls, and also to put any charges or incident on record as part of covering our butts from customers. Will you be able to make the delivery? Me. No, I refuse to make this delivery as she raised her voice, was rude, and called me useless and idiot, and 3 other residents heard everything she said. Support. Okay, I will just cancel her order. Me. Okay, and thank you. I hang up. In the end, I got paid in full with her tips, and I got the pizza. As for Karen, don't know what happened to her in the end. Either her pizza was completely canceled and she got her refund, or she has to wait for another 30 minutes for her pizza. But this was close to closing, so I doubt it. Moral of the story, never upset the people who have your food. Receiving your pizza cold is the kindest thing we could do for anyone who upsets us. Entitled Mom wants her son to have my puppy. So I just got a puppy and he's now 3.5 months of age. I'm 16 and live in a high-rise with the rest of my family. The context is that I let my puppy enter my opposite neighbor's house, living room only, to play and socialize so my neighbors won't have a problem with him in the future. So we've got entitled mom's kid, we've got entitled mom, and we've got the neighbor's kid. The story goes, 7 p.m., my pup wants to go out to play with the neighbors. I put his harness onto him and attach it to the leash, take him to my neighbors who happily welcome him. Neighbor's kid comes back home with a friend, and that's friend's mom. Neighbor's kid greets me and starts playing with my puppy. Neighbor's kid. Entitled kid, come play with Hachi. Name of the pup. The kid looks at me for approval. Me. Yes, there's no problem. Go on, he doesn't bite. After a while, entitled mom joins to play with Hachi. About 30 minutes later, Hachi gets tired and just sits there to relax. Entitled mom, after a conversation with neighbor's mom, taps my shoulder as I take Hachi back home. Why don't you let my son play a bit more with that dog of yours? Me. Yes, I would like to, but he's very tired now. Come back tomorrow if you like. And his name is Hachi. Oh, you can give him some food and make him back to energetic? Me. Sorry, but it's not what one should do, and it's not his feeding time. He will eat some of the food for sure, but will definitely go back to sleep. Tomorrow is the best option. Oh, tomorrow is a long way. Why don't you give me your dog for 3 days so that my son can play with him? Me. Sorry, that won't happen. He's just a puppy and needs me and my family by his side. Plus, I know that you or your family have never kept a puppy, in fact a dog, so I cannot leave my incompletely vaccinated puppy all alone with a person without any experience with dogs. His last shot is due on Sunday, so I cannot let you take him even for an hour. Entitled mom. Well, you can always come over to check on him every 3 hours or so. Here's some money. Hands me $500. Me, now completely upset. Listen thoroughly. Don't you get it? I'm saying no, first of all. He has a name. And if you want your son to play with Hachi, he has to come tomorrow. Entitled mom's son had already left before the conversation started, which turned into an argument. Hachi hasn't completed his shots yet, and also hasn't gotten his anti-rabies shot. What if he bites someone at your house? You're definitely going to blame me for having such a bewildered animal, huh? He's a well-mannered pup, but he is my pup. Why don't you get it that you are not his or my parent? Just leave. I put Hachi into my room, closed the door of my room, go back and slam the door of my house. Hachi slept, and I played Valorant and got all my rage off. Entitled mom and her family moved houses 3 days later. If I had been a dumb person and given Hachi to her, I don't know. She might have taken him with her, even though I have documents. Stranger demands I watch her kids while she shops. When I was 13, I was aimlessly wandering around and looking at random stuff at a retail store. That for this story I will call Bullseye, waiting for my mom to finish picking out some tennis shoes. A lady who looked to be in her late 40s came stomping up to me. She has a horde of 5 kids. They looked to be about ages 3 to 10, swarming around her, plus a baby in her arms. I have zero clue what she was saying. I don't understand pterodactyl screeching. I started backing away with my hands up, like she had a weapon pointed at me when she tried to place the baby in my arms. She just started screaming, "Manager! I need a manager!" until some employees walked up to us. She got this smirk of what I can only describe as pure joy on her face and pointed at me. You'd think she was identifying a criminal the way she was acting. This employee almost made me drop my baby. I tried to drop my kids off for childcare, and she refused to take my kids and wouldn't take my baby from me. There isn't a limit for how many kids you can drop off posted anywhere, so I don't want to hear it. I will not be discriminated against just because I have so many beautiful kids. My jaw was on the floor at this point. I was 13, looked even younger, was in the middle of my emo phase, was in the middle of the music section looking at CDs, and like I said, was in Bullseye. What about any of that would make someone think I was some kind of in-store daycare worker? The employee's face ranged from utterly confused to trying really hard not to laugh. When they all just stared at her for a few seconds without saying anything, the mom started back up with her bird mating calls again. I could make out bits and pieces. She's going to sue. She had to come find me because I wasn't where I was supposed to be in the childcare area. I look unprofessional. She doesn't want her kids watched by someone who looks like I do. And some more threats involving her husband and church. The manager finally spoke up at this point. He first explained that I don't work here and informed her that they don't provide any kind of childcare. She flipped out again, accusing them of lying. I actually figured out what she had been doing and explained to the manager. This store had a little mini arcade room near the entrance and the snack counter, where you can buy popcorn and soft pretzels, stuff like that, in case this isn't normal for bullseye stores in your area. She had been dropping her kids off in the little arcade room and expected the nearby employee to watch her kids while she shopped. The employee was only nearby because the room was right by the front door. This room is tiny. It has like 4 games in it. I don't know how all of her kids even fit in there. Apparently, this was her first time coming here since she had her baby. You'd think she would have been horrified, or at least embarrassed once the truth came out. But nope, she just started yelling more and accusing the manager of trying to cover up for me, since I had obviously abandoned the kids I was supposed to be watching. She said she was going to call the police, and I was like, so getting fired. The manager asked her to follow them so that they could take care of the situation, and while she refused at first because she wanted to be there when I was fired, she left with them when he finally lost his temper and yelled, "Ma'am, she does not work here. Leave her alone." The other employees took me to a register and offered me a $100 gift card and a lot of apologies. I tried to turn it down. It wasn't their fault, and I got a great story out of it. She insisted though. From what I gathered from her, the crazy lady had apparently said a lot of horrible things about me while shrieking that I couldn't understand. My guess is that they were worried my parents would sue them or something. They called my mom to the front of the store and explained the situation to her, then gave me my gift card. Luckily for them, rather than threaten a lawsuit, my mom just laughed her butt off the whole time. I really thought she was going to pass out from lack of oxygen. She was laughing so hard at my painful experience, she could barely breathe. She was super bummed that she had missed the whole thing. In the end, as we were walking out of the store, my mom looked at me in all of my emo gear and said, "Who the heck would try to put their newborn in your arms? A complete stranger who's dressed the way you are." I used to go buy blank shirts and Sharpie my favorite song lyrics all over them. I was so cool. In conclusion, I don't know how the situation with the Mother of the Year ended, but the next time we went to Bullseye, there was a huge new sign saying, "Do not leave your kids unattended," by the doorway to the arcade room. It was in the exact same spot as the old sign that said the exact same thing. Only difference was that this sign was about 4 times as big. I swear, my mom was hoping to run into Mrs. Hey Stranger, take my infant, because she all of a sudden needed to go to Bullseye all the time for a little while. Am I the jerk for spending $25K on ice skating every year? Background: my husband, 52 male, and I, 37 male, have been together for a little over 18 years. We've been married for 8 years. We got married after I got my mental health issues in order, bipolar, OCD, anxiety, and got my first professional job. I've always worked and I have a very strong work ethic, but this job finally offered me a comfortable income. I currently make about 85K. He makes about 70K. Additional background: I learned how to ice skate when I was 3 years old. My parents taught me in a backyard skating rink that my dad built. For years, it was common for me to skate every day during the winter. It was all highly recreational, and as I got older, I begged my parents for figure skating lessons, but they always said no. Finally, when I was about 12, they finally relented and signed me up for a weekly group lesson. I loved it. But a year later, they decided that it would be better for me to do something a bit more boyish and signed me up for karate instead in the hopes it would make me a more confident kid. After that, I probably only skated a dozen more times until I became an adult. Fast forward 20 or so years, I always expressed my love of skating to my husband. Not continuing with my training was a huge regret of mine, and about 3 Christmases ago, wouldn't you know that he got me a pair of figure skates. It was one of the best gifts I could have received. It irked me to have to wait until New Year's Day to go public skating, but the day finally came. It took me a few minutes to get used to being on the ice again, but I was having fun. But within an hour and a half, I took a bad fall and broke my wrist. I decided that once I healed, I would get myself some lessons again. I started with group lessons, but quickly found a coach for private lessons. I worked with her several hours a week. At this point, I work with a different coach, and I'm doing 7 hours of lessons each week, and I'm skating on my own for an additional 7 hours. This is quite expensive, obviously. I calculated what I'm spending, and it's easily $25,000 per year. This includes lessons, ice time, competitions, costumes, and skates. My husband wants me to spend $15,000 or less, but I'm not willing to compromise for a bunch of reasons. Skating helped me quit smoking. It has relaxed my mental health issues to the point that I no longer require medication, and I'm progressing quickly. I'm old for a figure skater, so I only have a few more years to reach my goals. I'm on my way to being a great skater. The rest of my money goes to things like car payment, vacations, miscellaneous, bills. I give my husband about $600 monthly to save. He handles all the regular living expenses. He keeps reminding me that I'm selfish and need to contribute more. But because of the above reasons, I'm not willing to budge, even though I'm pretty sure I am the jerk. What's the verdict? For the sake of 3 minutes. I worked in the tourism sector in a museum as a hands-on historian/actor. Our job was to expand on the text and exhibitions, play games with the kids, answer questions, and be general fonts of useless knowledge. 8 of us, and we had medieval characters, wore costumes, and were generally well received. It was hokey and corny, but fun. Hardly a stellar paying job, but we all loved what we did, knew a lot, and worked really hard to make sure guests were happy. Until our old boss had to leave due to family issues, and we got a new one, a real corporate manager. Before she arrived, our old boss was pretty lax. He didn't have to be breathing over our shoulders as he knew that we did our jobs. We had a clocking in machine, and the rule was logging out 3 minutes early or late didn't affect our pay. Because we enjoyed the work, we always came in early, clock in, not being paid to set everything up. We had to get dressed, set up the games, make sure the activities were out, general maintenance stuff. This took time. Occasionally, we ended up staying late if something unexpected came up. Again, no problem. When our new boss started, she didn't straight away start making changes, but she was watching us. Our work is obviously dependent on how much human traffic we have. If there are no patrons, there's nothing for us to do. The flip side was that when it was busy, we didn't have time to blink. She called us into a meeting and said that it wasn't suitable that during quiet time we were standing around talking and we should be engaging in some kind of work like cleaning, tidying, or picking up rubbish, despite that we had a team that did that. So work for work's sake, to justify our wages as we weren't being paid to chat. It was explained to her by our unofficial team leader that you're not just paying for our labor, but our time as well. She did not like or understand this idea, but we made ourselves look busy. She also believed that she knew the job better than we did, stopped listening to our suggestions, and started making little rules of what we could and couldn't tell people regarding the history. Nothing too violent, for instance. Ever met kids? They love to hear these kinds of details, age appropriate of course. There's a reason why horrible histories is so popular. The second issue cued the malicious compliance. Again, another meeting. This time over the 3 minutes early clock out, that we were paid until 1700 instead of 1657, that our hours were 10 to 17. No mention of us clocking in early, so we did just that. No one clocked out before 1700, but no one clocked out after 1701 either. Nor did we clock in early anymore. More than once, she saw us standing at the clock-in machine at 9:55, asked us to clock in. We said no, that it wasn't time. She tried telling us that we should be in early to prepare regardless of whether we were being paid. We told her no, working without pay is not what we're doing. This meant that those 20 to 25 minutes per person setup were now being done once we clocked in. No longer was the museum ready when the doors opened. Early morning patrons noticed. Because of her make them work every second regardless, it also meant the team was often scarce. We would be moving rubbish, filling leaflet shelves, getting rid of cleaning instruments, and also just hiding to get 5 minutes of peace. Morale also fell, so we followed the letter, but not the spirit of the job description. We frankly stopped caring as we didn't feel valued. I don't know what it's like now as the entire team left within 9 months. Far as I know, she's still there. Don't know how she's running the ship, but none of us have been back. Am I the jerk for saying my boyfriend should live alone for a while before moving in with me? I'm 20, female, and my boyfriend, who's 24, has lived with his parents all his life. He does pay rent, but his mom does everything for him. Cooking, cleaning, waking him up for work, the lot. I still live with my parents half the time, but also live by myself when I go to uni. While I know this is different to living alone full-time, I still know how to do things for myself, and I tend to live pretty independently when I'm at home. The topic of moving in together has been coming up more often recently because we do love each other and are both getting to the point where we will be financially stable enough to get our own place in about a year's time. I mentioned that he should probably get his own place or move in with a mate first to see what it's like living alone before we take the plunge together. He pushed for an explanation as to why, so I ended up gently telling him that I want him to learn to do things for himself because I didn't want to end up stuck with doing everything around the house when we lived together. He went really quiet and got upset, eventually saying it was cruel of me to suggest he wasn't adult enough to fend for himself. When I spoke to my parents to ask them if they thought the same, my dad said I was too controlling and I should be patient with him and teach him how to do all of these things. So, am I the jerk for wanting him to live by himself for a period of time before moving in together? Edit. Thanks for all of the responses. I really appreciate the advice. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. He does know how to do basic things like cooking simple meals for himself, but his mom is such a kind-hearted person who loves taking care of all of her kids, even 30-year-old who still lives at home, so he never does anything for himself. I'm more concerned that he won't be proactive in caring for himself in the house and more complicated things like which products to use for cleaning, what can and can't be machine dried. He's the sweetest man I know, and I don't doubt he'd try, but I much prefer that he has experience of actually doing things before moving in, so as to avoid additional stress in what would already be a stressful time adjusting to this new phase in our relationship. I'm going to suggest to him that when he's visiting me on weekends at uni, that he can take on a portion of daily chores so I can see for myself he can learn and be willing to do things without him having to spend a load of money on his own place just to learn. Click here to join as a member and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or click here to come listen to our playlist with over 1,000 hours of the best stories from Reddit.